Hello, everyone. My name is Miss Brooklyn, and today we get to do an ELA lesson together, and I am so excited. So let's go ahead and jump on in. I'm going to share my screen with you so you guys can follow along with what's going on, and we can look at this together. All right. So today we are talking about the 5 W's and also how. So in English and in when we're looking at stories, we will see 5 questions that we should be asking. And also we should be asking how. So the 5 W's and how. So let's jump on in. Okay, so before we get to the 5 W's, just a little bit more, I want to say welcome to the Learning Lab. I hope that you guys are having an awesome day, and before we get to work, let's go ahead and just get in the right headspace and take a deep breath. Awesome. Now think of something that makes you happy. On the right side of my PowerPoint here, I put a chocolate chip cookie because honestly, a chocolate chip cookie would make me so happy, and I love cookies. So I would love to have one right now. So once you've thought of something that makes you happy and brings a smile to your face, let's go ahead and set a goal for this time we are going to spend together. Your goal can have something to do with learning about the 5 W's, or maybe your goal is to just pay attention. Maybe is to keep your focus on what's happening. Maybe you want to learn a couple new things. Whatever it is, just go ahead and set that goal, set that intention, and we will check back in with that at the end. So what we are learning today will help us both in school and out of school. So let's just have fun while we get to come together and learn. Of course, I would love to be able to be with you guys in person, but I think that we can make the most of our time together over the internet today. So let's go ahead and continue on. All right, so here is our agenda for today. This is just a little bit of a rundown of what we will be doing, what we will be talking about. So first, you'll see we'll go over some vocabulary that will help you guys understand a little bit better what we are doing. And then I am going to tell you some materials you may need. These materials will just help you to have a better experience and maybe follow along a little bit better. And of course, we are goal setting. We already set our goal, so just be sure to keep that in mind because we will be revisiting that at the end. Then we're going to move on to the 5 W's. We're going to talk about what they are and why are they important. And then I'm going to introduce you guys to the story we're reading today. We'll preview that together. I'll take you on a little bit of a picture walk so you guys are able to go through that. And then we will take a brain break so that we give our brains a chance to rest and think about something else for just a minute so we can continue on and our brains are sharp and ready to learn. After we take that brain break, we are going to continue on and read. We will have already gone through our picture walk, but we will actually get to read the words of the book and look at the beautiful pictures. Then we are going to together actually create a graphic organizer and answer the 5 W's. So, and then after that, we will go over our objective and we will go over your goals and just what you feel like we accomplished today and how we can use it as we continue on in our learning journey. All right, moving on. So our objective and our objective is by the end of the lesson, you will be able to read a story and identify and answer the 5 W's. Who, what, when, where, and why. And of course, there is a bonus question, which is how. It's not a part of the 5 W's, but it is also a very important question to answer when we are looking at stories. And if you guys feel like you are able to answer the 5 W's, then adding how on there is just an awesome way to keep challenging yourself. So we'll go through that. And then our standard for the day is ask and answer questions such as who, what, when, where, why, and how to demonstrate understanding of key details in a text. So that means we will be able to answer those 5 W's and the how question and just show that we remember and we understand what was going on in the story. All right, so this is the time where I am going to tell you guys what you need, and I'm going to give you a chance to grab that. So the very first thing you will need is a piece of paper. I think a blank piece of paper, just like this, will be best. But if you guys have lined paper or graphing paper, any kind of paper you have is fine. I think this will definitely be the best kind of paper for this lesson. And then if you guys want to grab some writing utensils, I have a ton of markers. It might help you guys to grab more than one color, but if you want to do pens, markers, colored pencils, crayons, whatever you want, whatever is most comfortable for you, no problem. And also grab some scissors. We will be using these to create our graphic organizer at the end. So go ahead and grab those. This is your moment to pause the video and grab those materials. Okay, hopefully you guys were able to grab those materials. And like I said before, these will just help us have an even better experience when learning about our story today. So if you can grab those, awesome. If not, continue to follow along, no big deal. Okay, so these are just a couple of vocabulary words that will help you to understand a little bit about the 5 W's and also just our story. So the very first vocabulary word is setting. And setting is where or when a story takes place. So a setting could be the mountains. The setting could be a school. The setting could be the beach or maybe the mall. But it can also be what time of day. So let's say a story does take place at school. Do you think it takes place at school at night or maybe during the day? These are all questions we have to answer when we are looking for the setting. So the setting is where or when a story takes place. All right, moving on. The next thing we have to look at is the plot. The plot is the plan or the main part of the story. The plot is basically what's happening in the story. And then the next vocabulary word is event. An event is when something important happens. If there's something in the story that happens that you think needs to be shared or you think is important to understanding the story, that could be an important event that we need to write down. The last vocabulary word on this slide is characters. And characters, it's just a person in the story, or even sometimes it doesn't have to be a living person, but it could be an animal maybe, or, you know, something that maybe talks that doesn't really talk in real life. But for example, we see some books like Cat in the Hat, or books that have animals as the main character and they talk, those are still characters even though they're not people. So as long as it is someone who talks and who is kind of an important part of the story, that is a character. All right, so what are the 5 W's? The 5 W's are who, what, when, where, why, and our bonus word is how. So these are the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and then how is our bonus, okay? So the way that I like to remember that is, I'm gonna stop sharing with you so you guys can see me for a second. The way I like to remember that is I use my fingers. There are 5 W's, so we can say who, what, when, where, why, and how, okay? So these are all really important questions to ask when we are looking at a story. And let's go a little bit more into detail about why. But if you need help remembering these questions, then go ahead and feel free to try the hand trick along with me. Ready? Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Awesome. So keep practicing that if you feel like you don't have these questions down, but I'm sure you guys will catch on very quickly. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. We've seen these 5 W's and our bonus word, how. Okay, so our first question is who. And when we look at a story and we ask who, we are saying who is in the story. Who are the characters and what are their names? That is such an important question to answer when we're looking at a story, because if we don't know who the main character is, or if we don't know who is, maybe who is doing something, then we can get confused really easily, and maybe we can't really tell others what was happening in the book. Maybe we can't retell that. But if we know who and we know their names and we understand that they are characters in the story, that's very helpful, because then we are able to retell the story better and understand the story a little bit better. So just for the pictures, I put a couple of pictures of examples. Maybe you've read a story before where you have seen a knight in shining armor, and then there's a picture of some little kids. Maybe you have read a book with 2 kids as the main characters. Who knows? All right, moving on to the next W. All right, so we looked at who. Now we are looking at what. What is the main problem in the story, or what is happening? As you can see, just by this picture down below, we don't have a story to go along with this picture. There are no words to tell us what is happening here. But just by seeing that they are fighting over this teddy bear, we can pretty much guess, or we can use the context clues of the picture to assume that their main problem is that they can't agree over who owns the teddy bear. They're fighting over the teddy bear, and that is a problem for them. So if you guys are going through and previewing a story, if you are looking at a story before you read it, just looking at the pictures, some people call that a picture walk. Maybe you guys are going through and doing a little picture walk. You can often see what you think the problem might be. You can see what you think might be happening throughout the story, what different events are taking place. And that can be really, really helpful for you. Just like we just guessed, we're predicting that, well, it looks like the what in this story is that they're fighting over this teddy bear. So be sure to use pictures to help you answer these questions. All right, so we went over who, what is the main problem of the story. Now let's move on to the next W. When. When does the story take place? And as you can see, I've included pictures of night and day. And again, this is something you guys can probably tell just by looking at the pictures when you go through a story. When you are taking a little bit of a picture walk, or maybe you're just grazing through some of the pictures, you can often tell, well, does it take place during the day the whole time? Or maybe the story switches and it's night, then day, then night, then day, and we move through different days. But asking when is a very important question, because it helps us understand what's happening in the story. So for example, if we see that we have a book that's taking place at a school at nighttime, we know that they're either probably not supposed to be there, or maybe they're there for some special event. But just by using the knowledge that you already have, you know that usually we're not at school at night. So it can just help you kind of put together details, which is really exciting because there's more to learn about the book, and the pictures and answering these questions can really help you do that. So when is such an important part of the setting. All right, so we have gone through who, what, when. Let's see what comes next. Which of the 5 W's will come next? Where. And again, I put setting in parentheses to just remind us that this is a part of the setting. Not only is when a part of the setting, but so is where. Where does the story take place? I've shown you guys these pictures. There's one kind of in a meadow or a field, and then there's a picture in the city. It's important to look at what the setting is. Where is this taking place? Not only when, so time of day does help us because we know that we have a routine for a time of day, right? We wake up, we eat breakfast, we brush our teeth, maybe we go to school, then maybe we go to soccer, we eat dinner, we go to bed, we start all over. But if we can see where, that also helps us because we know that if we're in the middle of a meadow, give me a thumbs up. Do you think that we are supposed to be going to a shopping mall if we're in the middle of an open field? Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Yes or no? No, because usually there's not a shopping mall in an open field. It helps us decide what will kind of come next, which is a really important element when reading. So that is the where. Let's move on to the next W and just see what is next. All right. Okay, so we just talked about the where, and now we are looking at why. Why is something important, or why is it happening? One thing that is important to ask when we ask the question why, we have to think, why is something happening? Well, is this something happening because of a choice that a character made? Or is something happening because of things that they can't control? Why is this happening to them? It's important so that we understand the story better, so that we can enjoy the story and share the story with others. Why is another question. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second because I just want to go over this with you guys one more time. You have heard me talk about the 5 W's. There is who. Let's actually get our fingers up. Ready? There is who, what, when, where, why. Awesome. So now that we have those 5, there's actually another question that we should be asking, but I'll give you a hint. It does not start with the letter W, but it does have a W in it. All right, the next question that we definitely should be asking when looking at a story is, I'm going to share it with you guys so you can see it. It is how. So as you can see, there is a W in how, and maybe that will make you guys, or I'm sorry, help you guys to remember a little bit. But how is so, so important because the how is the character solving the problem? How is the problem being resolved? You can ask how all throughout the story. Well, how did the character get there? How is the character feeling? How is the setting important to what is happening in the story? There are so many how questions that you can be asking when looking at a story. And that's why I think it's important. I know we have our 5 W's, but that's why I think it's important that we add that how, because when we have that how, it just helps us to ask even more questions and go deeper in our learning, which is awesome. And honestly, the more you learn, the more questions that you ask, the more fun you guys will have when reading these stories and when just learning about all different types of new topics. So let's go over our 5 W's and our how. Are you guys ready? All right, put your 5 up. Here we go. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Awesome, you guys. So good. Hopefully this little trick helps you to remember how they go each and every time. I know that it helps me for sure when I am trying to remember. All right, so I am going to share my screen with you guys again, and we will move on. But now we have seen those 5 W's and the how, and these are all questions we should be asking. Great. So I've talked about this a little already, but I'm just going to say it again. Why are the 5 W's important? Well, they're important because if you guys can ask yourselves those questions and answer them about a story, it will help you understand it in a deeper way. It will make more sense to you, and honestly, it'll make the story even better. You'll enjoy reading it more, and since you'll have a deeper understanding, then you can explain it to other people. You can share that knowledge with other people. And there is no better feeling than being able to share knowledge that you've learned with others. So it's a really great feeling, and I know that you guys will really enjoy the process once you start asking yourselves those 5 questions and our how. So that is why it is important, and let's go ahead and keep on going. Okay, so we are going to preview our book by just going through it and looking at the pictures. Keep those 5 questions in mind, and also our how. So our who, what, if you need to write them down, go for it. I'm actually going to write mine down just so I remember who, what, when, where, why, and how. See, I just, I have a little note here, and I wrote mine down just to remember what I should be asking myself as we preview this. So we are going to do a picture walk, which just means that we are only going to be looking at the pictures. Please don't read the words yet. Just looking at the pictures and taking the time to look at those. So before we jump in, I'm just going to tell you this book is called The Pig with the Runaway Tail, which is so silly. You guys can see the picture up here. This is the cover picture, so you guys can probably already guess just by reading the title and seeing this first picture maybe a little bit about what this story may be about. So, The Pig with the Runaway Tail. And I always like to take a look at who is the author and who is the illustrator, just because they took their time and effort to write this book and share this with us. So let's take the time to look at that and give them credit. So the author is Parinita Shetty. I'm sorry if I did not pronounce that correctly, but to the best of my ability, that's how I think you pronounce it. So she's the one who wrote the words to this book. And the illustrator, which means that they drew the pictures, is Parvati Pillai. So that is the illustrator, and that person drew the pictures. So here's our cover picture, and let's continue on and see what else comes. All right, so again, we're not reading the words. We are just looking at these cute pictures and thinking of our W's and our how. Awesome. These are something I really like about this is just how colorful these pictures are. They really grab my attention and make me feel like I like this story even more. So try to pay attention to what is happening in every single picture that we're scrolling by here, not reading those words, just previewing. Look at all these people with the vegetables um, and the car right there. Oh, wow. Look at our pig up here. Do you guys see the tail anywhere? I do. I spy the tail. If you spy the tail, you can give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Again, I love these pictures. So, so colorful and beautiful. Awesome. Whoops, I went by that one kind of quickly. Aw, look at those. I think those are jellyfish and they're so pretty. Love that. Okay, we see our main character right here. Wow, something that I'm seeing is I don't know where you guys live, but I live in Arizona, and this picture kind of looks like where I live. I see cactus all the time where I live, and I do live in the desert, so maybe you guys see this too, and it kind of looks familiar like where you are. And if you don't live in the desert, maybe you've seen another picture that looks like where you live, which is awesome. Oh, wow. I think that's like a camel. It's so big. All right. Look at that. Very beautiful. Looks like she's trying on new tails, huh? So many different kinds of tails. Okay, so that is the end of our preview or our picture walk. And just right off the bat, I wanted to know I really, really loved those drawings. And something that I really loved about them was just how colorful they are. I felt like I was seeing really like cool and just bright colors. And that made me feel happy and just like the book all that much more. So that was something that I noticed that was awesome. Hopefully, you guys were thinking of our who, what, when, where, why, and our how. And you guys may not have all the answers to those questions yet, which is completely fine. We still need to read through with the words, but hopefully that kind of did give you a little bit of an idea about what is going on and maybe who our main character is. So many different things to think about. So hopefully you guys have kind of had a chance to think through that a little bit. So before we go ahead and actually read the book, there is something that I like to do every lesson, and that is to just take a quick brain break. I like to do this because I feel like it gives us a chance to just focus on something else other than our lesson for a second and just get kind of our wiggles out. So if you guys have a drink of water, or if you have a drink that you need to get, go ahead and take a drink. I know I'm going to get a drink. Okay, awesome. Now that we are hydrated, let's go ahead and just stretch a little bit. Just stretch, 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 whatever way you need to. Maybe you guys need to do some jumping jacks, or just get out your wiggles. I'm going to roll my shoulders. Awesome. Perfect. It's so good to just take this time to keep your mind sharp and keep yourself focused. Okay, I feel all stretched out and ready to jump back into our lesson. I feel like that was a good break, and I am ready to go. I'm going to take one more drink. Awesome. Hopefully you guys are feeling hydrated, and let's continue. So now the next step is to actually read our story together, which is so exciting. So we've already seen these pictures, but let's think of our 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why, and how. And let's read this story with those questions in mind. We've seen the pictures, we know what to expect. Now we get to hear out the words. All right. The pig with the runaway tail. Pongle the pig loves sleeping. Sometimes she sleeps all day. So the main character, her name is Pongle. In case you've never heard that word before, that is a name. Her name is Pongle. No wonder her tail gets bored easily. One day, when Pongle wakes up from her afternoon nap, her tail is nowhere to be found. It has gone on an adventure without her. See, we can see her little drool, and we can see her tail is right here on the stick, going away on an adventure. So silly. Okay. The pig feels silly without a tail, so she decides to go look for it. Look, she's looking in the mirror, and she's like, so sad. Scrunch. This forest is much too untidy, Pongle says. Eek! She trips over a log. Ta-dam! She falls into a bush. Oh my goodness, look, she's falling all over, trying to find her tail. Has anybody seen my tail? Pongle asks. Why don't you try a mushroom tail instead? Langer replies. Humph, Pongle says, but I want my own tail back. She goes somewhere else, she goes to look for it somewhere else. See, she tried on a mushroom for a tail, but she did not like it as much as she liked her own. Oof! This city is much too noisy, Pongle says. Beep, beep! She dodges a zigzagging auto rickshaw. And before we move on, I did look up what a rickshaw is for you guys because I did not know what it was, so I figured you probably, or maybe you do know, but might not know as well. And a rickshaw is just a 2-wheeled vehicle. So as you can see, this vehicle has 2 wheels and it almost runs into her. Dring, dring! She tries to crawl under a bicycle. Has anybody seen my tail? Pongle asks. Why don't you try a balloon tail instead? Crow replies. Gah! Pongle says, but I want my own tail back. She goes to look for it somewhere else. Look, she's floating away. Do you guys see her tail? I do. I spot the tail. Grumph! This cave is much too dark, Pongle says. Click clack! She carefully steps forward on the stone floor. Kadak! She tumbles into a pile of rocks. Has anybody seen my tail? Pongle asks. Why don't you try a stalactite tail instead? Bat replies. And I did look up that word for you also in case you did not know what it was. And that is just a formation, like a rock formation that's hanging from the cave. So one of these things up here that's on the top of the cave, it's just like a rock formation, and the bat was saying, why don't you try that as a tail? So that's what she has on as a tail. Ugh, Pongle says, but I want my own tail back. She goes to look for it somewhere else. Splish splosh, it's much too wet under the ocean, Pongle says. Dum dum, some colorful fish want to dance with Pongle. Look at these jellyfish dancing away with her. Whoosh, she hides behind some coral. Has anybody seen my tail? Pongle asks. Why don't you try a seaweed tail instead? Turtle replies. Ugh, Pongle says, I just want my own tail back. She goes to look for it somewhere else. Look at her trying on that seaweed tail. So silly. Plunk! This desert is much too hot, Pongle says. Foosh! She doesn't realize she's sitting at the edge of a dune. Whoop! She rolls all the way down to the bottom. Has anybody seen my tail? Pongle asks. She looks like she really needs some water, needs to stay hydrated. Why don't you try a cactus tail instead? Camel replies. Ah! Pongle squeals. But I want my own tail back. She goes to look for it somewhere else. I do not think a cactus would be a comfortable tail. I think that would hurt a lot. Oh, I see her little tail. The top of a mountain is much too cold, Pongle says. Aye! The rest of the world is a long way below. Thump, thump. She steps back before she feels too dizzy. Has anybody seen my tail? Pongle asks. Why don't you try a sock tail instead? Yak replies. Pongle stares at her newest tail. Look at that tail. Oh, that is so silly. A purple sock. This is very pretty, Pongle says. She remembers all the other tails she tried on. I'm certainly not going to wear a cactus ever again. But having so many different tails is actually quite fun. Everybody else has the same one forever, she realizes. Pongle comes to a decision. The tail can travel the world and have its adventures. The pig will stay back home and have her own. So you can see she's trying on all these different tails. And here we see the very last picture is just her tail having so many fun adventures. All right. So hopefully while we were reading that story, you guys were able to just think of some of the answers to our 5 W's and our how. I know I certainly did, and I really, really enjoyed that book. So hopefully you guys have that in your brain. So now we are actually going to make something called a graphic organizer. And what that is it's just a visual tool for you guys to kind of organize your thoughts, and it's really fun for practicing our information, like learning our information and all of that. So this is the time where if you have that blank piece of paper, go ahead and grab that. Awesome. You can grab it. And what I would like for you to do is to just fold it in half long ways, like this. The long way. Some people call it the hot dog style of folding. It is the long way. All right. So once you have folded this, it should look a little bit like this. Awesome. And now we have to think. So we have our 5 W's and we also have our how. So we have 6 questions that we need to answer. Now go ahead and take your scissors, if you have scissors, and we are going to cut so that we have 5 different strips where we can write our questions. But do not start yet. Do not cut the whole thing like this. You are only going to cut the top piece of paper like this. All right, so I will start. So we have 1. It's okay if they're not all the same size. 2. 3. 4. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1 more cut to get 6. So 6. So as you can see here, now I have 6 little strips right there. Awesome. You guys should have 6. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have this, if you guys would like to pick out 6 different colors, and if you don't have 6 different colors, don't worry. Use as many colors as you have, or if you only have 1, that is also completely fine. I am going to start with who, and I am going to use red for who. So let's see. The closest color that I have to red is probably this one. It looks pretty red to me. So I'm going to start by writing who on the top slip with a question mark, so we know it's a question. So hopefully you guys can see I just wrote the who up here. Oops, the who. Awesome. Next, we are going to move on to the what. And for the what, I am going to use a blue marker. What? With a question mark. So this is our what. Who, what. And next we have when. And for when, I am going to use green. So let's see, I'm going to use this green. Who, what, when, with a question mark, so I remember when. Awesome. Who, what, when. Great. And next we have where. And if I have a purple, I'm going to use that for where, and I do. Where with my question mark. Great. So I remember that I'm asking a question. And hopefully you guys are able to fill this out along with me. So after where, we have why. And for why, let's see, I'm going to use a pink. I think this is the closest pink that I have. Why. Why. Awesome. And finally, we went through all of our 5 W's, but we still have that extra question of how. And I'm going to use orange for this one. And again, whatever colors you can use, totally fine. How? I just like to change up my colors so that I kind of keep it a little bit different and fun. All right, so here is our graphic organizer. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. Now we are actually going to answer these questions for the story that we just read. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to answer them one by one, and we are going to answer them right here. So for example, if you are looking at this graphic organizer and you want to see who is the main character, all you have to do is lift up this who, and it will be written right here. If you are looking at this and you want to see where, we can open this up. So for the first question is who. That means who are our characters, who's our main character. So you guys can use the color. I'm going to use red again so that the colors match with the question, but whatever color you have is awesome. So when I'm asking who, I'm going to name the characters that I believe are important. So first of all, the most important character is definitely Pongal. So Pongal, just like that. Now, she was really our only character that had a name and we really followed throughout the story. So she was the most important. But I would actually say I would call the tail a character, because we actually followed the tail around and we followed the story that the tail put forward. It almost became like its own thing. So I'm going to put the tail. These are the two most important answers. If you want to go into more detail, you can. So another example would be camel. We saw a camel in the story. We saw a turtle. We saw a bat. There were lots, we even saw a jellyfish. There were lots of other animals that we saw in this story. So however many that you want to name, just by your memory, or if you only want to put Pongal and tail, I'm fine with that, because those are the two most important in my opinion. So now we are moving on. We completed the who. So you're looking at our graphic organizer. You can see who. Now let's look at the what. So I'm going to grab my blue marker again to match up with the color of the question. And I am going to look back at what. So when I am asking what, I am asking what is the main problem of the story. So take a second to think about it, and I'm going to write down an answer, and hopefully you guys do too. So I'm going to write. All right, so for the what, you guys, hopefully you guys wrote something down, but I said, Pongo lost her tail and went on an adventure to find it. This is what she was doing. This was what the main problem of the story was. She was on an adventure looking for her tail. Okay, so whoops, I dropped mine. So that is the answer for what, because we are telling what was happening, what was the main problem. Now moving on to when. When. This question is one that we actually don't really get the answer to. We don't know what time of year it is, and we don't know necessarily like what time of day it is either. But to me in the pictures, it seemed to be daytime. So I'm going to say, it seemed like all of the pictures mostly took place during the day. So I'm going to say daytime. And of course I'm matching up my color so that they match. So I'm just gonna say daytime. And that's it for when. Now we are looking at where. I'm going to get my marker that matches my where. And this is kind of a tricky question for this book because there were so many places. So let's just start to name some of the ones we can think of. So I will say, to start, Pongle's house. Remember, she was taking a nap. So let's say Pongle's house. That's one place. Okay? We can say, oh, in the cave, right? And I'm putting commas to separate all of these different locations. The cave, ooh, there was the desert. There was in the sea. So I'm going to say the sea. So we have the house, cave, desert, sea. There was the street where Pongle almost got hit by a car. There was the street. So we have the house, the cave. Ooh, there was also like the forest. Do you remember? When she was in the forest and she tried on that mushroom. So we can say forest. And I think the last one that I'm going to say is the mountain. It's really actually pretty unusual for a story to have this many locations, but as long as you can write down the ones that you remember, that's awesome. See, I said Pongle's house, the cave, desert, sea, street, forest, and I also said mountain. So those are the ones that I can remember. Now let's talk about the why. So with this question, we are asking why is it important, or why is this happening? Well, the why is because Pongo realized that she missed her tail and wanted to get it back. So I think that's what we should write. Pongo missed her tail and wanted it back. And then I'm just going to say she went looking for it. So we're telling why. And the why is because she missed her tail. She felt not herself without it. So Pongle missed her tail and she went looking for it. She went on that adventure to go find it. So now that we have our who, what, when, where, and why, let's go down to our how. And when we're asking how, we are asking how are they solving the problem? How is it resolved? And at the end, did Pongle actually get her tail back? No, she didn't get her tail back, but she had a really great time trying on other different tails, right? So we can say how they're doing it is during the adventure, Pongle tried on a lot of fun and different tails. All right, so I said during the adventure, Pongle tried on a lot of fun and different tails, and that's how she was going about looking for her tail. She was going on that adventure and trying on new ones. So this is what our graphic organizer should look like when it's complete. And as you can see, when you open it, you'll see all the answers and it's super awesome. If you guys want to write on the back of it, you can write your name. You can also write the name of the book, which is The Pig with the Runaway Tail. This will just help you remember what book you're referring to when you look at this graphic organizer. And this is something that you can make for other books as well. So that is just a helpful tip that you can do that. So now that we have made that together, I'm so glad we got to go through that. We are now just going to wrap it up and do our objective check-in. So today, our objective was, by the end of this lesson, you will be able to read a story and identify and answer the 5 W's, which are who, what, when, where, why, and also how. So do you guys feel like you've reached this objective? I know I sure do, because we read the story, we answered all those questions, and we put them in an awesome graphic organizer, which we can always use to help us remember. So I feel like we did. Hopefully you guys feel the same. All right, so if you'll remember, at the very beginning of the lesson, I asked you guys to set a goal. So I asked you to set a goal, something that you felt like you wanted to accomplish over this time. And just go ahead and think about that and answer to yourself. Do you guys feel like you accomplished that goal? My goal was to stay focused and answer the 5 W's with a lot of detail. And I feel like we did. We named so many different settings, and we were able to really just, I think, give a great kind of understanding of what the book was all about by answering those questions. So I feel like I did that. Hopefully you feel like you did that as well. And if you don't, then keep working on this lesson, keep working on the 5 W's, and I know you guys will get there, as long as you just keep trying and doing your best. Goals are awesome because you can set them for things outside of school as well. If you just want to set a goal to maybe clean your room a certain amount of days a week, or walk your dog, or help out with your parents or grandparents, whatever it may be, setting goals is just a great way to achieve new things. So with that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for sticking around and for creating this awesome graphic organizer with me, and for just reading with me and learning about those 5 W's plus our how. Let's just quickly one more time go over them so we don't forget. It is who, what, when, where, why, and how. Awesome, guys. You guys are great. Have a safe and healthy rest of your day. Bye-bye.